I think that today we have the ability to collect a huge amount of information, and a lot of it is what people call data. And so some of it is numerical information. And I think people have always been interested in counting things. And it used to be a lot easier to do that. You know, a lot of ancient Babylonian tablets are basically accounting data. Okay, and so there's evidence that for thousands of years, people have been interested in numbers and in ways to keep track of things. And it's just that now today, the data are so complicated that we need new ways to discuss them and to convey them. And I think data visualization is a really powerful way to do that. And that the more we can have society engaged with data through images and stories and the connection between the visualizations and the stories, I think the better the informed the population will be and they can make good decisions. So there's an interesting system of prediction that relies only on data. So data-driven prediction with no theory and no understanding of what phenomenon you're trying to predict. And what's interesting is that sometimes if you take epidemiology, for example, people will make predictions on an understanding of the spread of disease, and they'll try to forecast, say, the spread of a pandemic. But other people will take just the data and try to kind of use that as a model without understanding the spread of disease. And neither one of those models work very well in COVID prediction, and frankly, no model works very well. But the ones that work the best are the ones where you mix in some understanding of the data with a data-driven prediction. And I think that's generally true. And so I know, for example, that in weather forecasting, a lot of students in my data classes, they think that it's all done by machine learning. It's like, no, it's actually done by an understanding of atmospheric physics. But it is also true that, so there are these very quantitative models driven by observations that you need to plug into these models, but then really experienced weather forecasters will go, it's not gonna happen. And they'll actually change what the weather forecast is a little bit away from the model, or they'll choose the model that seems most sensible. And I think that interaction between human expertise and the models is actually really important, and that people who tell you that you should only look at data-driven predictions. I think some people have a natural curiosity for looking at information and for wanting to understand data, and other people do not. And the trick is to address both groups of people and to make tools where the people who are curious can explore information on their own and maybe even make their own conclusions mixed in with some expertise. And then the harder one is people who are not inherently curious about data and information and making decisions for themselves. How do you engage those people? And I think some of what we saw just now in the panel about visualizing the news, where you give them this kind of storytelling approach and you draw them into the story, I think you actually can engage people who aren't even necessarily prepared quantitatively to look at the data themselves. That today is becoming more and more and more important as a lot of decisions are being made by scientists and technologists that are very hard for policymakers to understand. And the more we make them understandable, the more it can be a partnership where the right policies are put in place to do things like save the world from the effects of climate change, or have us, steer the course between too much caution and not enough caution when it comes to things like a pandemic, or evacuate people in the course of a hurricane. And I think this is becoming more important as we have more information to share with the policymakers for them to be able to understand.